Let's take a look at a vault that housed horrifying creatures that managed to outlast their masters. A vault that promises to make the wasteland a paradise where humans can evolve. A vault that segregated its inhabitants and created mass paranoia, and 3 vaults that were all connected. Welcome back to another installment in our vault series where we plan to go incredibly in-depth into every single vault ever mentioned in official Fallout media. That includes all canon, non-canon, and anything in between. We already have vaults 0 through 15 covered in our last videos, so go check those out if you missed them. This video contains major spoilers for the Fallout TV show, so just know that you're being warned now. And make sure you're subbed so you don't miss out on any of the future vaults. We're really just getting started and things are getting really interesting. Also, if you could leave a like on the video, that helps out the channel a bunch, and we appreciate it. Thanks for watching and enjoy. Vault 17 is a mysterious location in the Fallout universe, primarily mentioned in Fallout New Vegas, with few concrete details available. Concept art from Fallout 4 shows that they were toying with the idea of Vault 17, having included it in all of these concepts. I'm not sure if they were planning on referencing the vault in Fallout 4 or what. Most likely, it was probably just a placeholder, but it's still cool to see. It was located somewhere on the west coast of North America. Little is known about Vault 17, including whether it was part of a social experiment. What is known is that Lily Bowen, a Nightkin and former assassin of the Unity, lived there long ago with her grandchildren, Becky and Jimmy. Lily and her family resided in the vault until she was around 75 years old. That was when the vault was raided by the Master's Unity. Many dwellers, including Lily, were captured during the raid. Lily was later exposed to the forced evolutionary virus, transforming her into a Nightkin, while the fates of the other vault residents remain unknown.
I grew up in Vault 17. I never even saw the sun until I was 75 years old. That was when super mutants raided the vault and carried a lot of us off. Yes, Leo, I'm getting to that part. They made me one of them, and they put me to work in an army that was going to conquer California. A spy, sometimes an assassin. I killed a lot of folks for the Master. Yes, Leo, you helped too.
And that's basically everything we have on Vault 17. It's surprising Lily doesn't mention more details about the vault. She has a few quips about it, but other than that, nothing significant. Vault 19 was one of the 5 vaults constructed by Vault-Tec in the Mojave region to house the civilian population alongside Vault 3, Vault 11, Vault 21, and Vault 34. What made Vault 19 unique was its segregation of its inhabitants into 2 separate sectors, red and blue, with limited contact allowed between the 2 groups. Unlike the other vaults, Vault 19 had 2 overseers, one overseeing the red sector and the other overseeing the blue sector. Like most vaults, Vault 19 was constructed with a social experiment at its core. In this case, the inhabitants were subjected to non-chemical, non-violent methods intended to induce severe paranoia. According to a terminal entry by a young vault dweller, high-pitched noises could be heard, which many others also experienced, possibly indicating the use of subliminal messaging. Over time, the original inhabitants began to exhibit heightened paranoia, blaming the residents of the opposite sector for various malfunctions within the vault and accusing the neutral side doctor of drugging them. Reports of hearing high-pitched noises, feeling unusual drafts of air from vents, and seeing blinking lights, almost as if in code, became more frequent. The red and blue factions each blamed each other, unaware that these incidents were orchestrated by the overseers at Vault-Tec's direction. Some residents suspected the doctor of involvement, as patient notes indicated many cases of psychosis or aggression, but no evidence surfaced to confirm the doctor's participation in the experiment. By 2281, the ultimate fate of Vault 19's original inhabitants remains unknown. By the time a group of escaped convicts led by Samuel Cook split from the powder gangers at the NCR Correctional Facility and made their way to Vault 19 in the north, the vault had already been abandoned.
Some of the computers still work, but the only files are diaries and garbage. Typical vault. Bye.
The surface entrance to Vault 19 is situated in an abandoned parking lot along Nevada State Route 159, between Bonnie Springs and Whitaker Farmstead. The main entrance is concealed beneath a sewer grate inside the parking lot attendance booth. Alternatively, there is a direct entrance to the Sulphur Caves northwest of Whitaker Farmstead. While the top floor of Vault 19 is mostly intact, the lower levels have been cut off due to the collapsed corridors. Due to the nature of the experiment of the vault, this vault's layout is different than most. From the surface, a ladder descends from the sewer grate into a small room containing the vault door and a control panel. Entering the vault, the hallway branches into several important areas. To either side are the two overseers' offices. On the left is the cafeteria, where escaped convicts can be found lounging. Beyond the cafeteria lies a hallway with two restrooms and the clinic, which has an examination room stocked with a range of medical supplies, including chems and surgical instruments, and a copy of Today's Physician. The clinic also features 5 patient logs scattered throughout the room. Living quarters between the red and blue groups are of course segregated, accessible with a blue sector keycard, which is provided by Philip Lem if the courier offers assistance. This area can also be entered by finding keycards in various locations, such as next to the terminals in either sector. The blue sector is a horseshoe-shaped hallway lined with rooms occupied by convicts. Items like bottle caps and Vault 19 jumpsuits can be found in the dressers, and at the end of the hallway there's an elevator that leads to the fire gecko-infested common areas. Red sector also requires a specific keycard, which can be obtained by offering assistance to Samuel Cook. It's smaller than the blue sector, with an L-shaped hallway containing similar loot in dressers and lockers. The Sulphur Caves can be entered directly from the Mojave Wasteland via a cave northeast of Vault 19, or through a hole in the floor in the recreation room in the living quarters level. A secret elevator, accessible by picking a hard-locked door in the caves, connects to the Overseer's office. The cave level is the most damaged part of the vault, consisting mainly of sulfur-filled tunnels, as well as a utility and reactor room. Sidney Wolfram, a developer at Obsidian, was the creative force behind the concept and implementation of Vault 19, and we have to give her credit. The vault's location, coinciding with the real-world site of the 41E Blue Diamond Mine, which featured a municipal fallout shelter, shows just how much research and attention to detail went into its design. Sidney's dedication makes Vault 19 a standout addition to the Fallout universe, and it's certainly worthy of our appreciation.
One of 2 vaults located in downtown Las Vegas alongside Vault 3, Vault 21 was built beneath the streets with its surface access near several of the Strip's iconic casinos, including the Lucky 38. Also known as the Gambler's Vault, Vault 21 was unique not only for its successful incorporation of a social experiment, but also for its ability to protect its residents from the devastation of the Great War. This makes it one of the few vaults that achieved its intended purpose. A similar outcome, though under different circumstances, can be found in Vault 81 near Boston, Massachusetts. Vault 21 was designed with equality at its core. Its perfectly symmetrical layout emphasized that all inhabitants were socially equal, and any conflicts or disputes were resolved through gambling. Representatives from each party would gamble in the main atrium, with the winner gaining the authority to settle the dispute as agreed upon by the collective. Sarah, a resident born in Vault 21, described its culture as pure New Vegas, where everyone has a chance, and Lady Luck smiles if you play your odds right. In 2274, the residents of Vault 21 were approached by Mr. House, who offered them the opportunity to reconnect with the surface and become part of its vision for New Vegas. While most of the residents initially wanted to refuse, a faction within the vault supported the idea. In true Vault 21 fashion, a decision was made through gambling. Representatives from each side faced off in a marathon game of blackjack. In a daring high-stakes move, those in favor of opening up to the outside ultimately won. Following their victory, Mr. House took control of the vault, stripping it of its valuable tech and filling much of it with concrete to permanently seal it off. However, siblings Sarah and Sheldon, also known as Mickey or Michelangelo, negotiated with House to keep part of the vault accessible. Mr. House agreed, allowing half of the upper levels to remain intact. Sarah then remodeled the accessible areas into a hotel, contributing to Vegas's thriving economy. After Mr. House's takeover, many former Vault residents were forced to leave, scattering across the post-war wasteland. Some managed to find new homes, like Doc Mitchell and his wife, who moved south to settle in Good Springs. Vault 21's surface-level gift shop is located on the west side of the southernmost section of the Strip, directly across from the NCR Embassy. A glowing neon Vault 21 sign marks the spot, visible just after passing through the gate. The building's lobby serves as a gift shop, where Sarah often greets visitors, selling knickknacks and offering tours of her former home. Behind a bulkhead door at the back of the shop, stairs lead down to the vault's entrance. Notably, Vault 21 is one of the few vaults that does not feature the iconic gear-shaped blast door at its entrance. Inside, the vault contains a central atrium with 2 blackjack tables and a hallway leading to various living quarters, including Sarah's room and a guest room available for rent. Another door connects to the cafeteria and diner. Much of the lower levels have been filled with concrete by Mr. House, as mentioned before, making them inaccessible, except for the maintenance level, which can be reached from the basement of the tops. This level features a long hallway with a few small branching rooms. The elevator in Benny's suite provides access to this maintenance level, though it remains locked unless Benny is attacked in the top's presidential suite. The tunnel beneath the maintenance level extends under the outer wall of the strip and ends in another locked door. If you're familiar with the real world Las Vegas, you'll know that the tunnels or homeless tunnels are indeed existent underneath the strip. Interesting to see how the layout may intentionally pay respect to the real Sin City in this regard. The in-game Vault 21 is geographically located near the former location of the real world Las Vegas Hilton, now Westgate Las Vegas, which contained a municipal fallout shelter in real life. The in-lore event of Vault 21's lower levels being filled with concrete is a subtle reference to the Silver Slipper Casino, as it was rumored that the mechanized slipper at the front of the casino was filled with concrete by Howard Hughes, who inspired the character of Mr. House in New Vegas. Lastly, if it wasn't already apparent, Vault 21 clearly is an ode to the game of blackjack, or the card game known as 21. Unlike the other vaults in the Mojave region, Vault 22 was not constructed to house a civilian population. Instead, it was dedicated to scientific research, specifically to address global hunger before the Great War. The vault was home to scientists focused on experimenting with staple crops, seeking ways to improve food security. Near the entrance, a sign proclaimed the ambitious projects underway, ranging from advanced fertilizers to enhancing crop production and increasing resistance to insects, drought, and disease. After the nuclear apocalypse, the researchers in Vault 22 continued their agricultural pursuits, aiming to sustain their own population by cultivating crops within the vault. Designed as a green vault, its inhabitants were devoted to protecting sustainable agriculture, and some of their most promising research relied on pre-war donations from defense contractors. However, one such contribution ultimately led to the vault's downfall. Beauveria mordicana, a type of fungus, was originally developed for pest control. The fungus worked by infecting pests exposed to its spores, eventually colonizing the host body and causing death due to organ failure. Once the host died, the fungal colony could fully control the body, using it to spread new spores and infect other pests. Although effective, researchers noted that it took between 10 to 20 days for the fungus to kill its host, and its spread was limited when dealing with solitary pests. The samples of this fungus were initially developed at the X-22 Botanical Garden at Big Mountain, a facility dedicated to researching plant enhancement and military applications. These samples were later shared with Vault Tech to support the advanced botanical research of Vault 22 scientists. The fungus, initially seen as a breakthrough in pest control, would prove disastrous, with its ability to manipulate host bodies turning into an unforeseen and terrifying threat. This ultimately led to the unraveling of the vault, as the once promising research turned into a deadly force that overtook its inhabitants. As with many innovations developed by Big Mountain, the fungus introduced to Vault 22 became an organic Pandora's box, effectively sealing the fate of the vault's inhabitants. Initially intended as a long-term solution for pest control, it was eventually discovered at Big Mountain that the fungus could also infect human hosts. Within Vault 22, as experiments with the fungus continued, its spores began to spread gradually throughout the vault, silently infecting its population without their knowledge. The first confirmed case of infection was Dr. Harrison Peters, a scientist specializing in food production, who provided a chilling insight into the progression of the fungal infection. It began with symptoms resembling pneumonia as the spores invaded the lungs, eventually leading to chills, fever, and a violent racking cough. The fungus caused the body to reject any antifungal treatments, ultimately leading to death from organ failure. After death, the fungal colony continued to grow, taking control of the host body and turning it into a reanimated, highly aggressive entity known as a spore carrier. These creatures had one singular goal: to spread spores and infect new hosts, reminiscent of some of our favorite antagonists such as the Flood in the Halo series. But not nearly as cool. The infection, which proved untreatable, spread like wildfire through Vault 22, baffling the scientists who watched in horror as the community they had built descended into chaos. What was once a promising agricultural research project ultimately became a horrific nightmare, with the vault's inhabitants turned into vessels for the deadly fungus, a grim testament to the unintended consequences of their work. The widespread infection led to the inevitable collapse of social order within Vault 22. As more humans succumbed to the spores, they transformed into spore carriers, and the airborne fungal spores posed an increasing threat to any remaining uninfected residents. In a desperate bid to eradicate the infection, the scientists attempted to ignite gas that had been deliberately released in the lower levels of the vault. However, it is believed that the gas release provoked an aggressive response from the spore carriers, who attacked the scientists, decimating their numbers and preventing the execution of their plan. By 2096, the vault had been entirely abandoned by the living, with the dead reanimating as spore carriers or becoming stationary fungal colonies, an eerie reminder of the promising research that ultimately spelled the doom of Vault 22. A group of 118 survivors left Vault 22, traveling north into Utah and eventually settling in Zion Canyon, where they encountered another group of refugees from Mexico. With superior numbers, discipline, tactics, and firepower, the Vault dwellers had every advantage. On February 11th, they launched a ruthless attack on the Mexican camp, killing all the men and shooting down any women and children who resisted. The remaining survivors were rounded up and penned like livestock, eerily reminiscent of the tragic acts committed against indigenous peoples during Utah's pioneer days. Living in the canyon at the time was Randall Clark, a former US soldier, modern-day survivalist, and all-around badass. Upon witnessing the massacre, Clark felt compelled to help the Mexican survivors. Over the next 2 days, he scouted the area, noting the Vault Dwellers' organization, including their patrols and sentries, which covered every approach except for the stream. Though puzzled by their persistent cough, which he mistook for tuberculosis, Clark set his focus on saving the captives. On February 14th, Clark infiltrated the camp only to find that the Vault 22 dwellers had already killed and eaten the Mexican survivors they had captured. Something inside him snapped. Clark launched a relentless campaign of vengeance, waging a brutal war of attrition against the dwellers. Armed with his rifle and looted explosives, he ambushed them whenever possible, booby-trapping bodies and taking weapons to continue his assault. By the end of February, Clark had killed 24 of the original 118 dwellers in a cold, calculated campaign of revenge, suffering just one wound. A 10mm steel-jacketed round through his thigh, fortunately missing the femoral artery. Despite remaining unseen throughout his attacks, Clark was forced to relocate on March 2nd after a small patrol stumbled into his cave shelter in the Narrows, a real location in Zion National Park and one of the most breathtaking hikes I've personally experienced. When one of the patrol members triggered a deadfall trap, the others fired wildly, nearly hitting Clark. He disposed of the intruders and then moved his camp onward. 10 months later, after losing over 80 members of their group to the unknown assailant and to sickness, the remaining Vault 22 dwellers finally gave up and fled Zion Canyon. They had resorted to cannibalizing their own dead for survival, and the fate of those who left the canyon remains a mystery, though occasionally damaged Pip-Boys and Vault 22 jumpsuits would turn up in the hands of prospectors traveling around Zion.
Oh, you've been to Vault 22, huh? I may have been exaggerating a little. Truth is, I got this suit and the pit boy off a dead prospector who came out from Zion.
The Saros tribe, who eventually settled in the area, knew of the Vault 22 dwellers, likely throughout the stories that Randall Clark, known to them as the Father in the Caves, passed down to their ancestors. Murals on the cliffs, painted by the Saros as late as 2281, depict the Father's weapon casting lightning upon skull-headed figures, with the number 22 prominently featured, a tribute to the dark history that unfolded in Zion Canyon. After the fungal infestation, Vault 22 fell into disrepair, becoming overrun by the flourishing plants and wildlife that thrived in the vault's unique conditions. Any scavenger who entered the vault soon met a grim fate, either succumbing to the creatures lurking within or falling victim to the fungus, adding to the ranks of spore carriers and fungal growths. It wasn't until around 2281 that scientific interest in the vault's experiments was reignited, largely driven by Thomas Hildern, the director of the Office of Science and Industry in the Mojave. Hildern hired several mercenaries to retrieve the data stored in Vault 22, hoping it would reveal a way to enhance the NCR's agricultural output and stave off the looming famine. Of course, Hildern had personal ambitions as well, seeing the potential for a major career boost. Frustrated with his reliance on paid mercenaries, one of Hildern's colleagues, Keely, decided to venture into the vault herself. But by October of 2281, she still had not returned. But how would one find Vault 22? Located south-southwest of the Griffin Ware's sacked caravan, east of Jacobstown, and west of Thorn and Westside, Vault 22's entrance is marked by a sign reading, "Welcome to Vault 22," defaced by graffiti warning, "Stay out. The plants kill. Unlike most vaults, which are hidden and unadvertised, Vault 22's entrance was explicitly promoted. The original sign beneath the graffiti reads, "Under the heart of the Mojave Desert, Vault 22 provides a fertile laboratory for experimentation on stable crops to maximize their potential." Within the vault, scientists and horticulturalists continue to innovate our understanding of agricultural possibilities in the fight against the global hunger crisis. The scientists who developed a miracle fertilizer within have made a profound impact on your ordinary life, so take a second to reflect on the hard work of Vault Tech scientists in improving crop production in arid biomes like the Mojave, and for increasing crops' resistance to insects, drought, and disease. The vault door itself is covered in overgrowth and lodged open, unlike most vaults, which are concealed behind natural rock formations or tunnels. Vault 22 has direct access to the surface. Across from the entrance sign, a hollowed out rock can be found, and the entire surrounding area is dense with plant growth and thick vines. Once inside, the vault opens into a room with an elevator and stairs. As you descend further, you'll encounter spore carriers, spore plants, and giant mantises throughout the vault. It is divided into 5 levels, and these floors can be accessed either by repairing the main elevator, which requires a repair skill level of 50, or by using the staircases that connect the different sections. Vault 22 has unique aspects to it, such as the second floor, which hosts the oxygen recycling aspect to the vault, the third floor, which maintains the vault's food production, and the fifth floor, which is filled with deadly savage spore carriers. The large cavern contains many giant mantises and spore plants. 5 Mantis and Keely, who is the gal that never returned from her mission, are located here, in an alcove on the far end of the cavern. The thought-provoking history of Vault 22 and its unique green design, combined with the eerie atmosphere of overgrowth and fungal infestation, make it one of the most memorable vaults in the game. It's a chilling reminder of humanity's pursuit of progress, and how even well-intentioned experiments can turn into nightmares.
If you've ever watched Gossip Girl, then you might have a good idea of what Vault 29 would have been like. Located on the West Coast, Vault 29 was home to children, primarily teenagers from wealthy families. This vault is specifically mentioned in Fallout 76 and also referenced in the non-canon Fallout Bible, which describes Vault 29 as containing only children under the age of 15, with adults deliberately diverted elsewhere. This aligns with the lore of Vault 29 as it was envisioned for Van Buren, where the vault's experiment was to accept only residents under the age of 15. A tribe known as the Twin Mothers, originating from Vault 29, was established in Colorado by 2253 and was canonized in the Lonesome Road.
Mojave's got ways of healing most ills. If not, some tribes are usually found a way you didn't expect. Like healing powders. Tribes back west only use xander and rock flour. There's a way the Twin Mothers in the east used to brew it though. Called it bitter drink. Mixed up the xander and brock in a bottle. Added some kick to it, so your head doesn't get all clouded. History. Cures a wound, leaves the bitterness that caused it. The Twin Mothers were always about lessons. Caesar taught them the last one though. So that's it for them. Can do that, and one better. Just enough around to mix some. Here, might make the Twin Mothers' history live a little longer. You carrying it.
Aside from these details, it's worth noting that Trisha Miller, a student at Vault Tech University, expressed concern about being assigned as a janitor at Vault 29, describing it as being stuck with a bunch of obnoxious rich teenagers. The premise of Vault 29 certainly sounds interesting, as Fallout lore generally makes this vault life sound pretentious. However, one could definitely see the experiment within the vault resulting something far more sinister, more like what one would find in the tale of the Lord of the Flies.
As part of the 3 vaults, Vault 31 is interconnected with Vaults 32 and 33, forming a tripartite society. On the surface, the purpose of the setup was to divide the community among the 3 vaults, creating a buffer to protect against potential threats if one vault were compromised, while also allowing them to support each other during times of crisis. The residents of Vault 32 and 33 were led to believe that Vault 31 was essentially identical to their own, offering only in having higher quality resources, better education, and superior food supplies. However, this was of course a deception maintained by the Vault 31 dwellers who had been released. In truth, the experiment involving the 3 vaults was part of a program called Bud's Buds, conceived by Bud Askins, a sleazy, corrupt senior junior VP at Vault Tech. Bud envisioned using the 3 vaults to cultivate a loyal population of future Vault Tech employees who would eventually dominate the wasteland once the surface population had succumbed to nuclear war. To achieve this, Vault 31 was populated with a hand-picked group of junior Vault Tech executives personally trained by Bud. These executives were then cryonically frozen within the vault. Meanwhile, the other 2 vaults were filled with individuals whom Bud deemed genetically desirable, living out their lives without the knowledge of the true purpose behind their vault. When the time came, Bud's junior executives would be released from Vault 31 and sent to the other 2 vaults, where they would assume the role of overseers. Their mission was to breed and create generations of junior managers loyal to Vault Tech, shaping those societies according to Bud's vision. Bud himself intended to oversee Vault 31 indefinitely, with his brain preserved in a rudimentary robot, far less sophisticated than a robo-brain, more akin to a brain in a Roomba. On the surface, the 3 vaults appear to participate in intermarriage and inter-vault trade every 3 years in a ceremony known as the triennial trade. However, for Vault 31, this is merely a ruse designed to supply the vault with necessary items and allow the cryogenically frozen inhabitants to join the other vaults, fulfilling Bud's vision. To date, all overseers of Vaults 32 and 33 have come from Bud's Buds, including figures like George, Betty, and Hank. These overseers often leveraged, or possibly even orchestrated, concerning incidents to bolster their campaigns. This trend has become so prominent that both vaults have adopted an electoral slogan in favor of candidates from Vault 31. When things look glum, vote 31. The truth about Vault 31 was finally unveiled in Season 1, Episode 8 of the Fallout TV series. Norm impersonated Betty Pearson in an attempt to deceive Bud Askins into opening the inner vault door. Once Norm learned the truth about Vault 31, he decided to return to Vault 33, but Askins locked the door behind him and advised Norm to use his father's cryo capsule, as Vault 31 lacked any food supplies. Earlier in the show, it was revealed that the residents of Vault 32 had also discovered the truth about Vault 31. In response, they killed their overseer and attempted to break into the neighboring vault, but their efforts ultimately failed. In a way, Vault 31 feels like certain aspects of America today, mirroring corporatocracy above all, with power and greed as its fuel source.
Part of a network of the 3 vaults near Santa Monica, Los Angeles, Vault 32 was directly connected with Vault 31 and 33. The vault remained sealed after the Great War, only exchanging population and necessary supplies with its sister vaults. For decades, the dwellers were told that the surface was uninhabitable, but were encouraged to prepare themselves for the eventual reclamation day. For over 2 centuries, life in the vaults remained stable, with entire generations born, living, and dying underground. However, a crisis emerged in 2294, when the dwellers of Vault 32 discovered they were nothing more than test subjects, living solely for the benefit of Bud Askins' eugenics project in Vault 31. Askins had devised a plan, with the help of Barb Howard, to breed a class of super managers who would inherit the Earth after the nuclear apocalypse.
Genetically selected to breed with my buds to create a class of super managers.
As mentioned in our Vault 31 segment, this experiment involved placing selected graduates of his Bud Buds executive training program into cryostasis in Vault 31, and then crossbreeding them with the chosen candidates from Vault 32 and 33, all under Askins' supervision as the robotic overseer of Vault 31. Essentially, Vaults 32 and 33 were mere breeding grounds for Askins' vision. In order to keep the populations of Vault 32 and 33 compliant, all of their overseers were periodically thawed junior executives from Vault 31, as we stated earlier. These individuals were awakened and transferred to the other vaults, and somehow replaced their predecessors. While there is no explicit explanation for how these elections worked, it seems likely that Bud Askins manipulated the voting process, using computers to ensure his candidates always won. The consistent selection of overseers from Vault 31 was not kept secret, but most dwellers never questioned it.
When things look glum, vote 31.
When things look glum, vote for somebody from Vault 31.
Eventually, the truth came to light, though it remains unclear how it was uncovered. Overseer Ian Jackson was tortured to death, and his staff were hanged for their treasonous actions. The resulting unrest led to widespread violence as the vault dwellers split into factions, with many turning on each other or resorting to suicide. Graffiti on the walls served as a reminder that the truth about Vault 31 was known, with messages promising death to management, a clear reference to Askin's eugenics project. The anti-management faction ultimately attempted to break into Vault 31, using whatever tools they could find, including blowtorches and other construction equipment. Despite their efforts, the revolt ended in failure, with the insurgents dying at the vault door, unable to gain entry. Askins restricted communication between Vaults 32 and 33 to cover up the incident, and kept Hank McLean, the overseer of Vault 33, in the dark, only mentioning the passing of Overseer Jackson. The secrecy allowed Lee Moldaver to use Rose McLean's Pip-Boy to gain access to Vault 32 and infiltrate Vault 33, posing as the next overseer of Vault 32. Moldaver explained the disheveled state of her crew by blaming a wheat blight that had devastated their crops. After the attack on Vault 33, Lee retreated with the captured McLean through Vault 32, sealing the passage behind her. Meanwhile, Norm McLean and Chet managed to enter the vault while the others were preoccupied with Stephanie Harper's labor. They soon discovered that Vault 32 hadn't been wiped out by raiders as previously believed, but had instead collapsed due to internal civil war. Recognizing the situation, Betty Pearson, recently re-elected as the overseer of Vault 33, consulted with Bud Askins and decided to resettle Vault 32. This decision served two purposes: to keep the experiment running and to separate potential troublemakers like Norm and Chet. In the meantime, Askins arranged a cleanup of Vault 32, removing the bodies and repairing the superficial damage caused by the Civil War. Once again, the interim overseer was selected according to the experiment's protocols. Other dwellers were sent to Vault 32, including Woody Thomas, Davey, and a dozen more residents. Vault 32 is similar in layout to Vault 33, with some exceptions. Its surface entrance is not located near the Santa Monica beach, but inland, near a drive-in theater and concealed beneath a pair of railroad bridges. It also has a similar atrium to 33's, except instead of raising corn, its principal crop was wheat, with the soil tilled using tractors. As the fate of the original Vault 32 residents is being investigated, a television can be seen playing an in-universe equivalent of the famous Rat Utopia experiments. This clip appears in the Vault Seller's Survival Guide episode titled Bud's Buds. In these experiments, rats were provided with unlimited access to the necessities of life, wanting for nothing. Contrary to expectations of overpopulation, the rats eventually stopped socializing, mating, eating, and raising their young. Some became hostile and violent, and ultimately the lack of real hardship caused the rats to lose the will to live, leading to the extinction of the community. However, in the in-universe version of the experiment, as depicted on the television, the outcome was different. The rats became overpopulated and eventually turned on each other in a desperate struggle for resources. This might offer insight into why Vault 32 ultimately collapsed, possibly due to a combination of their discovery of the Vault 31 experiment, the internal strife, and the crop failure claimed by Moldaver. Vault 33 is the vault in what was once Los Angeles in the Fallout TV series, shortly south of the Santa Monica Pier. Vault 33 is the third and final vault of the three vaults linked by a triangle of tunnels. You've probably seen this gal before. She's the main protagonist in the Fallout TV series, and her dad, Hank McLean, is the vault's overseer in 2296. We pretty much covered everything for this vault in Vault 31 and 32, so we can move on from this one.
Ages ago, long before I was born, we lived underground. Everyone had guns, but the overseer wouldn't let us explode anything, not even a hand grenade. We left and wandered the wastes. They were savages with knives. We blew them up with frag mines and grenades, burned them with flamethrowers.
Situated southwest of Nellis Air Force Base and east of the NCR Sharecropper Farms, Vault 34 stands out among the vaults of the Mojave for its unique layout and hazardous environment. Just outside the cave entrance, you'll find a US Army truck loaded with radioactive barrels, along with several golden geckos that spawn nearby. Unlike other vaults, Vault 34's entrance tunnel resembles a natural cave, and its interior layout differs significantly. The vault is highly irradiated, and players will immediately start accumulating rads upon entry, requiring precautionary measures to explore safely. The radiation, combined with hostile enemies approaching from all directions, makes Vault 34 a dangerous challenge for the player. Though the vault may feel like a labyrinth at first, its layout is mostly symmetrical, with certain halls either collapsed or barricaded, forcing you to take alternative routes. In the western part of the vault, there's a flooded area where you can find the corpse of a glowing vault tech under a desk. This corp holds the Vault 34 security terminal password. On this level, there's also a terminal requiring a science skill of 100 located in the utility room beyond the clinic that can be used to pump water out of one of the flooded areas. The reactor section of the vault has even higher radiation levels than the rest of the facility, excluding the armory, as it houses the vault's damaged reactor. At the end of the main hallway, a door leads to another flooded area that is inaccessible, while a small room nearby contains a few security guards and a copy of True Police Stories on the floor. Vault 34 also features an armory, accessible after defeating a feral ghoul and 2 turrets. The armory is a small 2-level room stocked with weapons and ammo scattered across tables, shelves, and the floor. The unique weapon, All-American, can be found on an overturned table, while the pulse gun is located in a very hard locked footlocker. However, most of the weapons in the armory are in poor condition. But why does this vault have an armory? The vault's social experiment called for it. Residents were equipped with weapons, though they forcefully took them, and were also provided with a variety of recreational facilities, including a full-size swimming pool at the cost of limited living space. According to information found throughout the vault, overpopulation eventually became a pressing issue. To address this, the Overseer had a remote link installed on their terminal to deny access to the armory. This decision led to a group of residents demanding access to defend themselves, which the Overseer refused. In response, the dissidents began rioting, taking whatever weapons they could and storming the exit to leave the vault around 2231. Another faction took advantage of this chaos to ambush the armory while vault security was preoccupied with guarding the exit. The group that left eventually became known as the Boomers, an isolationist tribe that later chronicled their departure from Vault 34 in a mural located in the Nellis Boomer Museum after they settled at Nellis Air Force Base. After the Boomers' exodus, the main exit was sealed, and guards were posted to prevent further departures. Unfortunately, this only exacerbated the overpopulation problem. Tensions reached a boiling point when the Overseer proposed population control measures, prompting another failed attempt to overthrow him. During this conflict, areas of the vault were severely damaged, including the reactor cooling vents, main computer systems, and other essential infrastructure. These events led to the reactor leaking radiation throughout the entire vault, and subsequent repair efforts by the engineering team, including Chris Haversam, proved futile. Whether by accident or design, the main exit remained sealed, leaving the remaining residents trapped with little hope for survival, aside from the possibility of an automated unsealing or external intervention before succumbing to radiation poisoning. By 2281, the vault still housed a few survivors, including Horowitz, one of the few remaining non-ghoulified inhabitants, though most of its residents had degenerated into feral ghouls and glowing ones due to the pervasive radiation. The radioactive contamination had even begun seeping into the ground surrounding the vault, affecting the NCR's local farming operations and posing ongoing problems for the region. While intended to test the dynamics of an overarmed population in limited living quarters, Vault 34 ultimately led to chaos, rebellion, and untold tragedy. The vault's tragic history, combined with its irradiated and labyrinth structure, stands as one of the most intense and unforgettable challenges in the Mojave, illustrating once again how Vault Tech's experiments often had dire consequences for the lives of those involved.
Vault 43 is known only from brief mentions. The only details available are that it housed a population of just 20 men, 10 women, and a panther. Vault 43 is mentioned solely in the Penny Arcade webcomic One Man and a Crate of Puppets, leaving a lot of its history and purpose shrouded in mystery. Oh, you thought expansions only came in the form of DLC to Fallout games? Not this time. Vault 44 could be found in the Fallout board game expansion, Fallout New California. And just to quickly reiterate, the board game is non-canon. The Vault 44 tile in the Fallout board game consists of 5 spaces: northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest, and east. The 4 cardinal spaces are empty, while the east space contains Vault 44 itself. Notably, the northeast space extends across the west, enveloping the northwest space. Vault 44 had a dark secret unbeknownst to its dwellers. A hidden section within the vault housed various dangerous creatures, kept there for research purposes. Robots were responsible for guarding and feeding the creatures while scientists conducted their experiments. Unfortunately, the combination of the automated systems and the electrical chains used to secure the creatures drew an excessive amount of power from the rest of the vault. Eventually, the main refrigerator failed, leading to the destruction of much of the vault's food supply. To make matters worse, insects infested the vault, contaminating what little food remained, rendering it unsuitable for human consumption. With no way for the Overseer to open the main door of Vault 44, the inhabitants ultimately perished. One Vault scientist attempted to contact Vault-Tec to submit his research, but his communications went unanswered. Meanwhile, the creatures in the hidden section survived, continuously fed by the robots with the contaminated food. At some point, Wastelanders managed to breach the vault, as evidenced by the open door and the dead bodies scattered throughout the interior. Because of our vault information coming from an expansion to the board game, there isn't a ton to say about this vault, except that Vault 44 serves as a terrible reminder of failed containment, the misuse of technology, and the tragic consequences of secrecy. Another chapter in the world of Vault-Tec's experiments. That's 11 vaults down, and we still have a lot more to go. Thank you guys for watching. It means a lot to us. Remember, enjoyed time is never wasted time, and we'll see you in the next.